Our journey today takes us deep into the heart of the Ozark Mountains, down winding roads and meandering creeks. We will travel through the bustling vacation destination of Branson, Missouri, and right by some of the finest fishing lakes in the Midwest. We'll discover a place where riverboats await evening passengers and nature excursions welcome tourists to an outdoor adventure. I'm Jim Viebrock. I've spent the last 30 years photographing, documenting, and now videoing old water mills. Many of these old structures will take you back in time when you go inside the mill. But today, the entire area surrounding the mill is full immersion in the 1800s lifestyle.
It's a warm summer's day and we're just west of Branson, Missouri at the theme park known as Silver Dollar City. This is an amazing place because it is set in the 1800s and everything here follows that theme. There's lots of roller coasters, lots of water rides, but the one thing we're here to look at is Sullivan Mill. Let's take a look around.
Silver Dollar City has been around since the 1960s. Since then, millions of visitors have enjoyed exploring the wooded theme park. They have several roller coasters, the American Plunge, Mystic Falls, and a flooded mine. There is tons of things for the kids to do, and true to the country music capital, there is live music all over the park and amazing food too. You can watch artisans perform their craft and go on a guided tour of Marvel Cave. But no trip to Silver Dollar City is complete without taking a ride on the Silver Dollar Line. Climb aboard the authentic steam train that gives guests a scenic ride through the Ozark Mountains. But watch out, this train has been known to get robbed from time to time.
Pleasure robbing you, young man.
As we make our way through the park to Sullivans Mill, there are a few cool antiques to point out.
One of the things I love about Silver Dollar City is all of the antiques they have sitting around this place. Being a picker for Silver Dollar City would be a great job. One of the things we found just sitting in the woods here is part of a set of stones. This is either the bedstone or the running stone. The bedstone usually in a grinder is the one that's stationary. The running stone is the one that turns. What's really cool about these is that they had to be recut from time to time, and that's called dressing the stone. That is those lines that you see in there. They were very useful in the grinding of the corn because they would move that corn kernel or wheat germ through that process. They would start in the middle, and as they moved out to the outer edge, they would get finer and finer and finer, depending on the distance that was set between the two stones. They come from France, they come from Germany, some of them did, and some of them are mined locally. They're usually made out of marble or granite, or sometimes limestone if it's a domestic stone. These are just really cool. They have to be recut from time to time. That's called dressing the stone.
Sometimes water needed to be lifted out of a spring or a cistern. In the 1800s, they had ingenious ways of dealing with that too.
Okay, this is just another example of an overshot wheel or some modification of that. In this case, it's a good way to illustrate how they moved water around. They're using the water power here to bring a spring here up to an elevation where they could then use gravity to do other things. Pretty cool how all this stuff works and the ingenuity of times gone past.
As I continue my way down to the mill, I spotted a corn sheller. Let's take a look.
One of the first things that has to happen before you can grind the corn is you got to get the corn kernels off of the cob. That's done with a machine like this. This is a one-hole corn sheller. I think this is an International Harvester Pony. I'm not 100% sure, but it's real simple to use. You would simply have your corn on the cob here. It has to be dry. You'll put it in there. You'll crank this. The kernels fall out the bottom and the cob comes out the front right there. The farmer may have done this at home, but if they didn't, this was one of the services that the millwright would offer. It's really cool to watch one of these wheels work. All over the park, there are great examples of how water was used and moved in the 1800s. This example is an undershot water wheel. It's really neat because the water propels the wheel in what looks like a reverse fashion by pushing the paddles from the bottom side, as opposed to that of an overshot wheel that the water comes cascading over the top. I could watch those all day long. This is a great example of an overshot wheel here at Sullivans Mill inside the park of Silver Dollar City. What I think is really neat about these is the way that the water cascades over top of them. By far, this is what people want to see when they come to look at a mill. They love the iconic overshot wheel. And why not? I mean, the flume's right there, the water cascades over it, and through gravity and inertia filling up those buckets, that wheel turns just amazingly smooth. I think these are awesome.
My good friend Frank Capps is inside grinding corn. Let's take a look inside the mill.
I like to run this mill. I like to tell folks about it. It's quite a piece of history because it's very old. It's over 100 years old, and it's been here in the shop for a little better than 50 years. And it'll do wheat or corn. We don't do wheat because a lot of folks are allergic to gluten. And when I do wheat, I've got to be sure I get it all cleaned out of this mill before I go back to corn. I just put the grain up here in this hopper here. The little shaker you see moving back and forth is a process of that little wheel right there. It's got a curve in it. And as that goes around, that shakes it, and the grain goes down, and that shakes the grain with gravity down the side and comes in the center of that stone. The stones are about 20 inches in diameter. They sit up side by side vertical. One of them turns. Well, on this side's turning like that as it goes around. This one is stationary and has a hole in the center of it. That allows the grain to go in between the stones. They have furrows in them called grooves. That lets the grain get in between them, and it grinds it right against there. I can adjust it, make it coarser or finer. This is pretty well the way I run it most of the time. But I haven't adjusted.
Is this cornmeal?
Cornmeal, yes. It's the result of this right here. Now this is right out of the mill, and it has the corn husk in it. But I sift it out with my little sifter over there, and that takes the husk off the corn, and I throw it away. And I bag this up, and we put it in the shelf, sell it here. We do white corn too, but the white corn is not as big a seller as the yellow corn.
You're currently there's a beautiful water wheel outside, what, about 12 feet in diameter?
About 12, 10, 12, yeah.
10 or 12 in diameter. And so talk about how it powers all of this.
That water wheel out there, they rebuilt it about 8 or 9 years ago because it was getting kind of bad, so they built a brand new one. And that thing really works great.
Yeah.
And they did a great job on it. They built it just like the old one was. And so it turns real easy because one day I was out there and the wind was blowing after they'd put it on. It was in November. And just the wind blowing a little bit, that wheel was turning real slow. That's how easy it turns.
Yeah, it's amazing how little water it takes to actually make one work.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. People say, is that water do it? I say, as long as the water's steady and don't off and on, as long as it's going steady, once that wheel starts going, it just keeps it going.
Yeah, inertia makes it go very smoothly.
Yes, absolutely.
So do we know the history of this mill? Where did it come from?
This mill was on Fall Creek. Fall Creek runs down through the hills. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Right. I
don't know the exact location, but it wasn't too far from here. And a man by the name of Charlie Sullivan lived in this area all his life. He was near 90 years old at the time that he gave the mill to the city. He donated to the city, so they named this Sullivan's Mill for Charlie Sullivan. But in those days, people would go to the mill and get their flour and cornmeal because they didn't go to stores. There wasn't stores around, you know.
Right.
And a lot of times they'd travel several miles on horseback, maybe with a couple of bags of corn over the horse's back, or in a wagon, you know, something like that.
Right.
And I've read stories where there would be a mill pond, a pond out by the mill.
Right.
And people would go there and meet their friends. They'd have a picnic while they were getting their stuff processed. And they'd visit with one another.
Right.
And that's the way they visited, had a picnic, had fun.
They'd get their hair cut. They'd go to the general store and pick up other provisions while they were there.
They'd have, at the mill would be a store, something like this. And they'd have products in there they could get. So it's quite a meeting place back in those days, you know.
Right.
And I can kind of see that in my mind how it would have been, you know, thinking back.
What's your favorite part of this mill?
I think what amazes me is how long these stones last. Now, I've been here, like I say, 25 years, and to my knowledge, they haven't done anything to those stones since I've been here. They can be refaced, recut. It takes certain tools to do that.
Right.
But I don't think they've ever done it since I've been here. Of course, we don't, as you see, we don't mill real heavy all the time, so they're going to last longer. But they would wear down eventually. But for 25 years, I don't think they've been touched.
Yeah.
And they're still doing a great job.
Unique and historic places define our American heritage, each one with its own story to tell. These old mills were the lifeblood of the communities they served, and the place where memories were made. I'm Jim Viebrock. Let's go find another mill to explore.